Hey,
Hi, France.
hey, Alex, thanks for joining me. For those who are not familiar, if you just want to take a moment to introduce yourself.
Oh, sure. My name is Alex, and I am one of the teachers in Kadampa Meditation Center in New York City, and I principally teach at the Harlem branch. For those of you that have no clue where Harlem is, it's in New York City, in Manhattan, Uptown, Apollo, those landmarks.
Yeah, awesome. And I love that you chose this topic, equanimity, as one of your upcoming teachings there. And I have a few questions to kick us off. So one question that I've received recently, and I think would be really helpful for people new to Buddhist meditation, is what is the difference between meditation in general and Buddhist meditation in particular? And I think equanimity is a great example of one of the meditation objects we use to illustrate it because it's very accessible and it's very different from, say, like just doing a breathing meditation.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I was just in a meeting with someone else and she found out that I teach meditation and she's a singer, so she's connecting meditation to singing. And
Mhm.
she's like, I don't know if you think this is meditation, but for her, singing is meditation. And I was thinking, well, in my mind, it's so funny that you're asking this, that Buddhist meditation is very specific, because we're not just interested in feeling better for the moment. Like singing is amazing when you're singing and letting go and all that. But
Yeah,
what we're looking for in Buddhist meditation is to let go of specific types of minds, delusions, which are the actual cause of all the problems. And then you can sing all the way, but with, a happy mind, or you're not anxious while you're singing, you're not angry while you're singing and all that. But you're really going in deeper with Buddhist meditation. It's just specific to, uh, targeting letting go of negative states of minds, cultivating virtuous, positive states of minds. And the effect of that is that you feel inner peace. You experience your Buddha nature, your inner peace.
nice.
It's so much deeper.
And how would you say with a meditation object like equanimity, how does that apply to what you're saying? It helps us overcome our delusion, and how would you create and hold an object like that?
I mean, equanimity is perfect for that because, first of all, it's the foundation to even begin to train in the meditations on love. You first have to look at equanimity. You have to meditate on equanimity because it's targeting your states of minds of anger and attachment and ignorance, like the three principal root causes of all our suffering. It's looking at why is it that you have an attitude, a specific attitude of anger towards this person? Why is it that you have, you're so attached that you consider this person to be a source of your happiness?
Mhm.
And then it's also looking at every other person that you ignore in the world, because they're not giving you, they're not important to you at the moment. So it's really specific in that it's training and developing a balanced state of mind, an equal balanced state of mind, because you're letting go of the anger, the attitudes, unbalanced attitudes that are created by anger and attachment towards other people and ignorance, not even considering like the millions of people in the world that are also suffering.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the way you described it there. And it's the with equanimity, there's that like contemplation aspect of it, right? Like looking, how am I categorizing people in my life? Who do I really like and who do I dislike? And
Yeah.
how do I generate a more balanced mind to them? I think that's one of the key things with Buddhist meditation is the contemplation piece of it. And then there's also the placement piece of it, which in this meditation, I think it's, having a balanced mind with an affectionate heart that basically if we think of anybody or interact with anybody, we feel equally warm to each of them.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do. It's really, I had this image of living a life without equanimity. And I was thinking, okay, so what if it actually became a really funny experience, because you have only the people that you dislike and only the people that you like in your world, and then everyone else you don't even think about because they don't exist. And then you're just kind of, it's what, Venerable Geshe always says, it's you're living on an unbalanced attitude, it's a rocky ground. So you're always tripping and running away from people. It's like, imagine yourself walking in New York City. And you're like, there's that person that I hate. And you're like running the other way because you're running away from your own perceptions. It's like, but it's them, it's real. And then all of a sudden you see someone that you like, but then it's inherent. And you're like, come here, my source of happiness. We're constantly going like this and running away and hi and everybody else, whatever, that's pretty
Yeah.
much it every day. And we don't see it as a thought, like we're creating it. It's a mistaken idea, it's a mistaken thought, it's a mistaken, we got attitude problems, literally.
Yeah.
We got
Yeah.
attitude problems.
And it's interesting how you described it there as like a balanced ground, right? Like if you're trying to walk somewhere and you're always like running after the things you don't like, running away, running after the things you like, running away from the things you don't like, you're never just at peace. You can't, then that's where equanimity, it sort of gives us that like balanced, peaceful framework. And yeah, it starts to give us a lot of wisdom that shows like exactly like you're saying, we're how we are involved in creating the our relationships and what is in our mind like underlying them that's driving us to act in a certain way, and that is directly like taking away from our inner peace.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I love equanimity, the meditation, because we're starting off, it's easy, actually, very easy to do. And we're also taking responsibility for what's happening in our life. And we notice that we actually can change that is not inherent in other people. That we're just we're learning how to free our minds from negative states, from anger and attachment, not freeing ourselves from people, which is what we usually do. We tend to shift objects as opposed to human beings and living beings, and as opposed
Yeah.
to kind of letting go of that those
And it
states.
gives sort of like a new a framework for how we engage in our relationships. Like it really shows that how we engage them is in our control, and that it actually allows us to do something very meaningful with them, even if they're not, good ones, like the people we would rather not be with, but we have no choice. We have to be with them. We can, instead of just experiencing pain and suffering, we can use that difficult person as an object of our patience, and to again develop that balanced mind of equanimity. And so even though it might be a difficult relationship, it becomes like a new angle on it, a challenge for us to how can I keep a more balanced mind in this.
Totally. I mean, and I've been taking care of my mom for a long time, so she's been my mirror, to me, to my insanity. Um, and all this time, so long. I mean, it's been over 20 years now taking care of her, and it dawned on me, not recently, but a couple of years ago, that I just needed to drop that attitude that I have
Mhm.
about, and also, it's like, oh, but she's not this, this, and that. And that also, I realized that the attitude shifts depending on if I have love in my mind and I think she's important, the experience with her changes. She's important, she matters. At that moment, that attitude just makes everything so easy. No rocks in the field. It's all very easy and things grow from there. So it's why I've been able to have such a great relationship with her. In general with people, because you're owning up what's arising in your mind, but you're not identifying with it. At least I don't, because you're clear as to, um, which is another beautiful thing about equanimity, is that you also get to know the nature of your mind, that it's always very balanced. By nature, is balanced and free from negativity. It's never It's that insane. It's not anger, it's not attachment, it's not ignorance. It's a very balanced state, always, all the time. Not sometimes, all the time. So if we let go of the anger, it just naturally goes into that balanced state, that state of equanimity.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much in there that you said. I love the first thing is the attitude, that this is changing our attitude. And I think that's like a fundamental thing of Buddhist meditation, something unique to it and something really important for like mental health and for our relationships is what attitude am I bringing to this situation? And how is that, um, yeah, affecting the situation. I remember when I was a kid, my dad would always say to me when I had a bad attitude, he would say, "Lose the attitude," and which is which is really great advice. And especially, there's a second thing that really stood out with what you were just saying is if we can see it like a bad attitude coming in our mind, actually with these kind of meditations, we get the choice not to like identify with it, grasp onto it, go with it. And we can just be like, oh, look, there's a bad attitude appearing in my mind.
So
And we could like tell ourselves, lose the attitude kind of thing. We get the mental freedom to choose, do I want to like view this person with this attitude and engage in the situation with this? Is that going to be helpful? And that's the kind of like wisdom we can develop through these meditations to recognize actually that attitude is not helping me at all. It's making my mind unpeaceful in this situation. And that goes back to the third point you made, which is actually when we develop this kind of wisdom and meditation, we have this, we start to recognize this underlying like peace in our mind. And like that balanced mind is actually really who we are, not these like bad attitudes. That's we are completely free when we recognize through wisdom, I don't have to be this person. In fact, it's not me at all. And so I'm going to be myself, which is that basis of wisdom and peace and balance and a good attitude with all the relationships that I have.
it's true. I mean, in New York, we always used to, it's a normal phrase to say you have an attitude problem. Like
Yeah.
an attitude problem. For me now, as a Buddhist, I'm like, yeah, when I see that I have anger arising in my mind, like I have an attitude problem right now that I'm gonna fix. Like it's all very fixable, it's all very light. That's the other thing about equanimity, is a very light mind, because you're not fighting against your nature. It's just taking you there. It's just taking you there. And then you're also, recognizing that the negative states of minds themselves are also actually not as heavy and permanent, and by nature have no form and no no color, no nothing. Like they're like, can you find anger? And also, can you find the angry, annoying person as well? Like you start investigating, it becomes a lot more, it's so deep, this meditation. It's about letting go of mistaken projections, mistaken attitudes, connecting to your potential, the balanced state of your mind. And then from there, it's just easy to think, oh, right, that other person is important. Yeah, oh, of course they are, because there's no anger, there's no attachment, there's no self-centeredness involved with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very light.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. There's so much contained in this meditation.
Yes.
There's yeah, different like you're saying, even just the what is the projection that we're having of like an angry person, whenever we're doing that, which we call enemy, right? In this meditation, the enemy be the group of people we don't like. We're always projecting some kind of aspect of them, which is some flaw, and we're exaggerating it. And we almost like view them through that lens, and we think they're an intrinsically faulty person, and
Yeah,
therefore I don't like them. And we don't recognize that that projection is coming from us. We think that's who they are
yeah.
versus what's actually happening is that's who we think they are. And with this meditation, you start to see those like underlying projections and how our attitude is creating them and where they're really coming from. And that's actually not who they are at all. That's just how I'm viewing them. And then it comes back to this one like fundamental point of Buddhism is what states of mind are valuable and what states of mind are not valuable. And I think
Yeah.
this is like one of the fundamental things of Buddhism that is unique to it, that it just completely, it's life changing, right? To ask ourselves, what states of mind, what attitudes do I have are helping me, and which ones are harming me, which ones are not allowing me to be peaceful and happy and are ruining my relationships. And clearly, when you investigate what we're talking about here, like when we have that aspect of our mind exaggerating someone's bad quality, that is it's a distortion of reality. Nobody like exists as an intrinsically faulty person. But when we have the mind, it sees them in that way. And if I can recognize this isn't valuable at all, this way of thinking, it is not valuable to this relationship. It's disturbing my inner peace. And as we were saying before, like that is not who I am. Not That's not who I really am. It's just the delusion, like a funhouse mirror distorting reality. We again get more freedom and see that in our mind. We get the freedom to not buy into that appearance, and it leads back to that like balanced state of mind we're trying to develop.
It's true. And you always, when you teach, for example, or even myself, when you're engaging in this meditation, especially during the day when you're not actually with your eyes closed meditating, it can become challenging. And that's the fun part about it. Because you can see it's like you're being smacked by your own attitudes, all like projection. It's like, wow, I'm constantly like recreating people. It could be the same person within like, 5 minutes. I'm sitting in the train and this person becomes like an object of annoyance, or all of a sudden they're okay. It's like, how is this happening? um you just become so very light with this, with your mind, and just so connected with that experience of equality, of equanimity. But the other thing that Venerable Geshe says with this meditation, it's not about becoming callous and like all of a sudden, yes, it's all in my mind and I'm going to transform and everything. I don't care. It's like it's not as if you're becoming a person that doesn't care about people. When you have a balanced mind, I think there's that stereotype that it's like you're just balanced and not caring about anything. Everything's just bouncing off you. And you're not even considering people in any way. You're just letting go of your thoughts, in that sense.
Yeah.
Fact, it's complete opposite, because you're letting go of the anger, the attitude towards the negative attitude towards other people, and you're this like firm belief that you think is so true. When you let it go, it just feels, like you're just able to be there in their space and understand. Yes, they do a lot of things that cause negativity towards others, toward myself, whoever, but you can see them. You can see them without judgment, and you can still consider them to be important. They can still think just like me. They want to be happy just like me. They suffer, and this is what they do because they suffer, right? But without that balance, you can't see that. It's not going to be easy. You're pretty much pretending
Yeah.
that
Yeah, and
like
this is something I've seen as a theme in discussions I've been having recently is when people hear these kind of things, there's sort of a reaction to almost like protect the delusion in a way, right? Like, especially if there's someone who is a problem for us and we hear some advice like this and the sort of instinctive reaction can be, well, they are a problem. And if I don't recognize that and see them in that way, then I'm, like you're saying, you're sort of like out of touch with reality. You're just trying to be peaceful here and not like actually seeing what's
yeah.
going on. And there's sort of this defense mechanism where like, no, I want to hold on to them that way because that's how I see them. Um, and it's challenging to really like let that go. And I think there does have to be some underlying wish to change and a recognition, like we have when we're listening to Dharma teaching, like there's some inner sickness in my mind. Like I'm seeing things incorrectly because of delusion. And I don't need that and I don't want that anymore. But as
Mhm.
long as we're sort of like grasping, and I think this meditation is almost it's very difficult to do from that perspective of like really letting go because we we believe things are how we see them. Like, and we don't want to change our mind about it. That's just how it is. That person is just difficult. And there's like I get you're saying I could see them in a different way and change my mind, but how could I when they're really difficult, you know?
I had this contemplation, France, yesterday, because I've been kind of playing around with this meditation a bit, focusing on the people that I don't like, focusing, really taking the time, because the meditation is, well, the longer version is 4 rounds, where you're looking at. But, just thinking about the people that I don't like and imagining what if they were the only people that existed in this world? Like, what if the people, and it's probably like 10 people because self-centeredness doesn't have the capacity to have a lot of friends. Like it's like, so you're talking about, okay, they're the only people that exist. Everyone else is gone for whatever reason. And they're the people that you have held such a firm belief that they're just inherently bad. They're the only ones that are left in the world, including you. So what are you going to do? Are you going to just hide from those 10 people? You're 11. There's 11 people left in the world. You're going to have to shift your attitude towards them. And it's going to be easy because you'll realize that you need each other. You need each other to survive. There's an interdependence of, you can't survive without other people, that they're so kind to you and you'll need them. And so that feeling of appreciation, gratitude, and importance will take over, and your anger and whatever it was that you were holding on to about this person, the attitude, the perception, it's just going to go away. It's just going to have to. So who's doing all that? Who's doing all that? That was like my contemplation or meditation. Like, who is doing all this? It's my mind is creating stuff that is actually not really there. It doesn't mean that it's not something that I have to learn to let go and deal with, but it's a creation of my mind. So I can let go of that.
Yeah, and that seems to be one of the key things Geshe-la points out in this meditation is like we have to see how our attitudes are projecting or creating these like three groups of people we're talking about, the people we like, the people we don't like, and everybody else who are like strangers, and that basically our own perceptions are unreliable. Venerable Geshe says that, and it doesn't in this meditation. Our own perceptions are unreliable because they're precisely because what we've been talking about, they're based in delusions. They're exaggerating the bad qualities of something or exaggerating the good qualities of something, and then like grasping onto them existing in that way. And until we recognize that underlying thing happening in our mind, it is difficult to change our mind about it. And so we have to really challenge ourselves and ask, is this a valid perception of reality? And is this a valid way of looking at reality? Because there are literally an infinite number of different ways we can look at reality and the people in our life and how and what we focus on about them. And it always comes down to that question is this beneficial, right? Is this a beneficial way of relating to and looking at this person? And I do think actually it's very obvious with equanimity meditation that when you compare sort of the anger, especially that, like exaggerating the bad qualities of someone and pushing them away, to the having like a balanced mind that just has a warm heart towards everybody, wants everybody, like you're saying, to be happy because we depend on them. And, we have a life in which we are interdependent with everybody. And, we can't, if we spend so much of our time pushing people away, then we're just, I mean, basically we're living a very difficult life unnecessarily, which pretty much sums up delusions, right? We're living a difficult life unnecessarily. Um, yeah, but there's this whole like aspect of how are we creating our friends and our family and recognizing we're doing that and that those perceptions are that we have are not helping us.
They're not. They really aren't. And I I had this funny experience recently, doing the just thinking about remembering that this is connected to equanimity, is the love meditation on our mothers, like remembering that everyone is our mother. And I did the Adrian version where I just kind of walked around and mere name mother, just kind of no explanation behind it. I just mother. And I kept doing it. And it was just like, oh, like just, without overthinking it, just going with it. You felt so connected because you're just recognizing that they exist, as opposed to just walking by. There's so many people in New York City, and we're just constantly walking away from people and towards people. And we think this one is in my way, they're not in my way because I like them, whatever it is, based on our attitude. So if we shift that attitude and think, mother, mother, this is my mother. And it was actually pretty like heartbreaking because there's so many homeless people and mentally ill people in the streets, and you're like, my mother, like you're just like, and then you want to wish them happiness all the time. And so I got to the train and I sat down. It's like, mother, everybody is my mother. And it was just really amazing. And then this young person comes in, and I wasn't quite sure. I'm like, if he was homeless or mentally or whatever, but there was something interesting about them. And they sit up on the row across from me, like next to me, but across. And all of a sudden I'm thinking mother, and this person starts, I realize they start throwing food at me. And just like just started throwing food.
Classic
And
New
I
York experience.
like feeling like, where is this coming from? Like, what is happening? And I'm like, what? And then I look, and my mother was giggling like like just like hysterically laughing. And I thought, I had no anger towards this person at all. Like it was just like, oh my God, this is hilarious. This is my mother that's acting childish. But and then I just, I solved the problem. It's not like I was ignoring what was happening. Of course, I moved to another seat that was further away because they were going to continue to throw food at me. But then at the same time, I didn't lose that feeling of connection, that warm feeling. It's like this person, it's a friendly mother. Like I was just so just my heart just went out for that person, and enjoying also their joy because they were giggling at throwing food at me. Um but it just takes that shift of attitude. That just doesn't take much to just see people. It's like, and then you just feel this warm connection towards them.
Yeah, that's such a great story and example of just how when we change our mind using these meditations, it completely changes our experience. And there, nor without that shift in attitude and new way of looking at people, that kind of situation we think would just be one like how could you not get angry if someone's throwing food at you and like dislike this person, and then all of a sudden you have this whole stream of thoughts about why does the city enable this to happen in this way, and
Yeah.
like this stream of anger towards people, and then it just we cultivate this sort of like worldview or build on top of it, and it's again, we don't recognize we're creating that versus this attitude, like you're saying, where you apply some kind of meditation, Buddha's meditation mind to it, view to it, or you think this person is my kind mother, they've shown me kindness in the past, or like you were saying before, I'm interdependent on them. I'm not separate. They're part of me. Their happiness is not separate from my happiness. Their suffering is not separate from mine. That attitude, it changes our perspective completely. And then again, we get the mental freedom to
Mm.
reply how we want. And that I love how you said in that example, I just moved my seat. Like if somebody, that's a good way to illustrate, if somebody is doing something that, we think is harmful in a way, then we can change the situation. But the key thing is what was our underlying attitude? And that's that is what determines our experience, our happiness. That is what is actually the most important when it comes to any situation, is what are those underlying ways of viewing it, and are they leading us to happiness or are they leading it away from it? So I love that example because it's just such a practical one of dharma in action.
Yeah, I think, whether we are with a person or not, we have to love people. So, eh, whether you break up with them or not, it doesn't mean you're gonna, I'm like, we're broken up, that means I don't have to love them. No, you have to love people, whether you're with them or not, whether, and there's a lot of extreme circumstances that we go to because, we're always trying to challenge things. That's our go-to. It's like, really, do I really have to let go of the anger and I'll still be protected? I'm like, yeah, you will, but you can only experience that if you let it go. Like, if you continuously think, question it and never do it, then it's always going to feel like you're going to need anger to protect you from other people that are giving you the anger, whatever, misperception is arising. So it takes an extraordinary, like you said, we have to make a decision to take responsibility for what's arising in our mind,
Yeah.
but on the basis of having, that taste and experience of our Buddha nature, the nature of our mind. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. We have to know that our mind is always balanced and it expresses itself in love and compassion, and it's our nature to be a
Yeah.
good person.
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious, I think one reaction people often have, a strong one to this, is if it's in my own mind and my experience in my own mind, it's not from other people, then one thing I can think is, well, then you're saying that I'm to blame for the problem, not the other person. And like you said, people go to extremes, right? They'll go to, like, if someone abused me, you're saying that my suffering and my problem is in my own mind. It's not because they abused me. And that is something that is very challenging to accept, because that's a very difficult situation, extreme condition. Um, so how do we, have this shift in attitude where we're saying, I am responsible for my own happiness, my own freedom, and yeah, like, not, having that recognition. It's like the other person, yes, they're doing something wrong that maybe harm me, but not, I guess it's not like blaming ourselves for that, like, how do we not blame ourselves for that if we're shifting our attitude in this way?
Yeah, I mean, it really does come down to a very strong recognition and experience with your inner peace. Before you even, and we're taught this, and before we meditate, we have to take the time to calm our mind, to connect to that inner peace, which is our indestructible. I love using the word indestructible. It's because it's always there. You can't destroy that experience of inner peace, and just rest there, like place your mind there and enjoy that. Spend a lot of time there. Becomes your best friend. After a while, you build a relationship with your inner peace. You start trusting it. You start understanding that it's protecting you. And it's a place where you can always go, right? And that's who you are by nature. But that's a progress, and it's a beautiful journey actually, to be able to experience the inner peace, but then learn to trust it. The more you stay there, you're like, oh, this is my refuge right here. This is where I can always go. Um, and then that's how when you're engaging in these types of meditation, especially on the love meditation, because you are really looking at the anger that you have towards other people and how you perceive other people. And from that experience of trusting your inner peace, having developed that trust and identifying with that, then whenever you're recognizing your anger, even if you end up recognizing it, thinking that that's who you are, you still have a go-to. You can at some point let it go. You know, you can always let it go. You have that experience. So whether you anger arises and you don't identify with it, anger arises towards another person and you don't identify with it, or whether anger arises towards another person and you do identify with it, you still have a source of refuge that you develop a relationship with,
Mm.
very intimate relationship actually of trust that's connected, you know, to, as we say, going more transcendental as the enlightened minds or the Buddhas. And there's no discouragement that arises. Even if it does arise, you're able to let that go. There's no fighting. Even if there is fighting, you're still between you and yourself, whatever arises, you're still able to let it go because you've developed that relationship with your inner peace, you know,
Yeah,
that
I
trust.
love that. It's all about identifying like that new basis of identifying ourselves, our own inner peace, and thinking this is who I really am. And then, it I think that directly would oppose the sort of state of mind that like I'm a victim. If someone's harming us, we actually can recognize actually it's not that they're harming me. It's that our delusions in our mind are harming us both. And that is a very different attitude to you're harming me. Means that we are both being harmed by the inner disease of delusions in our mind. It's making us perceive each other as enemies and, fight or whatever the circumstances. And I think like where you're saying about identifying our own inner peace, we also, for this meditation to be successful, we also need to recognize that in other people. Like they have that potential of inner peace within their heart. And that is being obstructed or ruined by the delusions. And that is what is creating this conflict in our lives and our relationship. And then it goes back to, this cherishing others attitude about like, okay, how can I live a life, be an example, help this person to get rid of their delusions. And maybe there's no way to do it directly, but it's like becomes more and more part of our underlying like worldview and motivation is I need to keep a peaceful mind and a balanced mind because I want to help everybody else to do the same because I want to get rid of delusions from this world, from my life, from all those I love, everybody around me. Um, I do think that that is like an essential shift we have to recognize for this meditation on equanimity to be successful.
Yeah, definitely. It has to be, you have to be very real, you know, with, and my, you know, not to get into like my past or anything like that, but I'm not saying this lightly. Like, my, you know, my childhood was very, 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 very challenging. And, you know, and so I can say for certain that these meditations work. I can equanimity, all the meditations on love, on the great scope, all the meditations that Buddha gave, they just work because the pain and the challenges, whether it happened when you're in, you know, as a child or teenager, or I don't know how old people are who are watching this, however age you are, you know, if you look at your mind, it's really their feelings, they're really painful feelings. Like the root of it is painful feelings. All of it is painful feelings. Every single experience that you have is that's negative is rooted on a painful feeling, you know, and connected to some sort of delusion,
Yeah.
anger, attachment, and then we tend to relive things as if they're still happening, you know, or they might happen again, you know. So, so I don't say this lightly, that I just feel like these meditations are amazing. Equanimity is amazing because, you know, at the end of the day, if you've changed everything in your life to be happy and you've had a difficult childhood or life, and you've been changing everything, including the people and every external situation that you can think of, and you're still unhappy, then you have to look within. It's like you have to take responsibility in a good way. It's like, yay, now I can connect to my inner peace. Not like, oh, now I have to look at my mind. Yeah. You'll just recognize everything that you can change by looking at your inner peace. That all these painful feelings aren't so substantial the way you thought. And that the people that appear to you to be awful aren't actually substantial either. They're not, they're just appearances, thoughts, that arise and dissolve.
Yeah, I love that. This is one of the theme in the discussions I've been having lately is just like, one of the things Buddha pointed out that as long as we have painful feelings in our mind, we are going to experience a life of suffering. And then we have to learn to get rid of or control and get rid of our own negative emotions, our own painful feelings in our mind if we truly want to be happy. And that's I think the one of the main values of Buddhist meditation is it gives us the tools to do that in a way that really nothing else can. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I one question I have for you, since you are bringing, teaching this topic in Harlem, and I love that you've been teaching there, you're continuing to teach there to help everybody to, have a more balanced mind, a more equanimity. What would you say to people who are, listening to this, who are maybe coming to a class? Like, what what is it that you would want them to take away from, like this meditation or this meditation series or just this topic? Like, what is it that you really like want them to have and get and to like change their mind, change their heart?
Oh my gosh. I mean, to me, it always comes down to this. The takeaway is that your mind is by nature balanced. It's stable. It's light. It's not anger. It's not attachment. That your inner peace, is not, you don't need to search for it anywhere. It's just abiding within you. And that's love, like when you're able to, excuse me, when you're able to connect to that state of balance, that's the nature. I always think of it as like our mind is by nature, the nature of letting go. It's never holding on to things. It's never holding on to resentment towards people. It's never holding on to the past, the future. There's no anxiety within it. It's always in a state of equanimity. Even our own definition of equanimity as humans is a mind that's, balanced. They use the word mind, balanced, even under stress. Even under stress. So the stress is created by our negativity. And the takeaway for me is always so important that we have a balanced mind. We have an extraordinary mind, actually, an extraordinary, undestructible potential. And that love is a very easy thing to cultivate once you're in that space.
Awesome. That's so great. I love that. I'm just very inspired by teachers like you who are going and, just every week showing up and helping people to realize these things about themselves. I think it's there's very few people doing this in this world where like there's so much potential we have in our own mind for freedom and overcoming this our negativities and finding everything you were just talking about, the peace and balance within. And it's I just think it's incredibly important. Like people's lives are so difficult. And I think Geshe said this actually when he came to New York City, just like the amount of people that are here, the amount of suffering that are here, like they need Dharma, Buddhist teachings, these realizations and insights now more than ever. So I just yeah, deeply appreciate that, you're helping everybody in New York City and in particular in Harlem in this way. It's so cool.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Happy to do it anywhere. But I'm especially happy to be in Uptown Manhattan because that's where I'm from, born and bred. So it's nice to be able to share that, to share these meditations and to share something that can definitely change your life. that can definitely change your life. No joke. This could definitely change your mind, your life completely in like that moment, just meditating and
Yeah.
acting in that way.
Yeah, and I think it also has the power to like change not just people's lives, but like the entire community, like if people take these meditations to heart personally, of course, their life, their relationships are going to change. But then if you get a group of people doing it, even like 10 people, who are coming together to develop a more balanced mind, a mind free from anger and attachment and more love, like that group of people is a powerful force, even if it's small in a community, with like the rippling effects, like a drop in a lake rippling out. The just a small group can have a huge impact, and it
Yeah.
basically helps everybody in that community and the lives of, especially in an interconnected web like New York City, where one person's life can touch hundreds, thousands of people. It's incredibly powerful and meaningful.
Yeah, it is. It's very much so. I know people that go to the classes say the same thing, that it's just different to meditate in community when you're there in person, meditating in community, because you feel each other's energy, and you also have the opportunity to have a discussion about the meditation itself, to remove any doubts that we have, that other people might also have or might not realize that they have, and to clarify the meditations in a way that they're able to go deeper with it.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's just
Yeah,
so
people to
important.
discuss with and like develop like these kind of discussions and then develop
Yeah,
your realizations and insights together. It's super powerful.
it is. It's been
Yeah.
fun too. You have a lot of questions, a lot of real questions. Like, I remember, I mean, there's so many examples, but one of them comes to mind. A practitioner that was coming to the classes, and I was teaching on love. And she was like, yeah, I understand that we have to develop love for everyone. And then she gave a real example. It's like, what if, which happens in the community, it's like, what if, you're being beaten up by a police officer, for example? She was like right out, gave that example. What if you experience racism? That was some other examples. Like, are you supposed to just kind of turn the other cheek and disappear?
Right.
And it always comes down to like what the example, what Geshe says, Venerable Geshe says, it's like there's two situations going on. There's the external situation, and then there's what's happening in your mind. And what's happening in your mind is actually very crucial. That experience of what's happening in your mind will shape your experience of what's happening in the external. So you can still fix the external. Like if you see someone wants to beat you up or whatever the case is, you find the solution. You don't become weird when you're training in equanimity. You don't become a weird person. You become an extraordinary person, um, because you're letting go of your negativity. So you're fixing the external situation. Like, I had to move to another chair in the train because someone was throwing food at me. But you still have to recognize the actual cause of your problem, because if you don't, that anger can linger for the rest of your life. You're holding on to that pain,
Yeah.
for the rest of your life, and that's the problem right there. That's the problem right there. So, all these isms, they're all awful. They're horrible, 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 and it causes so much pain and suffering. But if we're able to differentiate with, external problem, we need to fix that. But we also need to look at our mind. We still have to love people. We still have to love people despite what they do.
Yeah.
We do. It's the only way we can transform.
I love that you said it allows us, these meditations allow us to be extraordinary, and that like your shirt, be extraordinary. So it is like
All
seeing
right. Sorry.
being able to love someone even when they're challenging, like that's an extraordinary quality. And those are like the qualities that we need to develop in our own mind, our own heart, and we need in this world, because that is really what transforms things for the better.
And it's not fairy tale. It's for real. You can really do this. We can really do this.
Yeah.
We're not making this up. Buddha isn't making it up.
Tried, tested, and true for thousands of years.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Well, awesome. This has been a very great discussion. I loved it. And yeah, thank you for taking the
Thank you.
time.
Thank you. This was nice. Thank you.